Okay, surprise, surprise. I am doing a pop up teaching on tonight about a subject that is very, very controversial. It's so controversial, you cannot find a whole lot of teachings out there on it. Um, and I'm not going to pretend that I am an expert on the topic. I'm going to teach you guys from what I've learned about this, and yeah, just kind of let you in on a little bit of revelation. And I think that this is going to be helpful to you. All right, I don't see anybody coming into the chat. I don't know if the chat. Let me click the pop out. Okay, I got to do the pop out chat. All right, hey, there we go. I can see y'all now. I can see y'all now. Hey, how are y'all? I don't know why sometimes it requires me to do the pop out chat. Sometimes it pop out chat. Sometimes it doesn't. At least we stopping that early. Hey. Thank you. So today I'm gonna deal with a subject that's relatively controversial. I'm gonna be talking about the Siren spirit, aka the Mermaid spirit. It is something that is classified under the marine kingdom. And the reason I decided to talk about this is because it's been my dominant conversation for the week. So a lot of times for me, a lot of teachings I come out and do there is because it's my dominant conversation or my dominant thought for that particular week. And so that's been my dominant conversation for the week. It's amazing that one particular night, I worked overnight, and as the morning was approaching, I, went to bed, and I ended up getting a text message about, I just ended up getting a text message, and I ended up calling a friend of mine, and we discussed, and we talked about the mermaid spirit, and I was thinking to myself, man, I really need to go to bed. I really, because I don't think I had to get up early, but I was just like, I really need to go to bed. So as soon as I got off the phone with her, right when I was hanging up, I had another call to come through, and we ended up talking about the same very topic. It was just the same thing, and I come to realize that a lot of people are dealing with certain spirits. And well, of course, I know a lot of people are dealing with certain spirits, but I've come to realize that the mermaid spirit is not really largely taught, and a lot of people are completely unaware of it. And I talked about this last week. Last week the Lord kind of just threw me into that topic because I think it was last week or the week before last where I was scrolling TikTok and I started coming across videos like that, which piqued an interest. And so it's just been really amazing. And I've been doing a lot of research. I bought one of Pat Holliday's books, and that was that. So I want to talk about this particular spirit because it's the dominant conversation of the week. Before we get into it, I would love for you to like and share. Before we get into the message, I would love for you to like and share. Yeah, they do. They actually teach people to become sirens or to embrace that. When I was doing research on the topic, there are a lot of people out there that are into witchcraft, and they are teaching people to embrace these spirits. And God says they walk in darkness, but they don't know what makes them stumble. Like you have these people, they don't understand why all these bad things are happening in their lives. And it only just serves to drive them deeper into witchcraft. It's amazing. The enemy has a system that is almost fail proof. So what the enemy does, for example, when he wants to drive you into witchcraft, he inundates you with a whole lot of pain, a whole lot of headache, a whole lot of heartache, and he makes sure you're surrounded by people who don't necessarily know how to instruct you. He causes you to be very limited in your knowledge. So you find yourself going through a whole lot of heartache, and you don't know where to go. And everybody around you seems to be relatively ignorant. And maybe you're in a small town, you're in a religious church, and you're not getting that much information, but you have somebody that comes along who seems to have a solution. And they say, oh, girl, you need to go talk to Madam such and such. And this is how people start getting into spiritual things. When they start getting into spirituality without God, which AKA is called witchcraft, they start getting into spiritual things because they find themselves being inundated with pain and frustration, like molestation, rape, all of these crazy bad things happen to them. A lot of times they come up in families that are very ignorant. families that, expose them to the very people that raped and molested them. They go through so much as children because what the enemy is doing is training them. When you're a child, the enemy has already decided. When you're in your mother's womb, he's already decided what he wants you to be. And so they go through all of this, but they have no information, no revelation, no nothing in order to get out of that. And having come out of that type of lifestyle, one of the worst feelings that you can have is to feel powerless. That's the worst feeling in the world, is to be going through stuff like that, having people to constantly just take authority over you, for you to be powerless. What it does is it makes you crave power. For you to be powerless, you get raped, you get molested, you feel powerless. And what it does is it makes you want power, because God has given us a measure of authority and somebody has taken that from you. And so consequently, as you get older, you start discovering powers, albeit ungodly powers that you have. For example, you start discovering as a female the power of your femininity. Now, I'm not going to continue on right yet because I want to make sure that we get people to like and share. I don't want you guys just coming in and spectating. I would love for you to like and share. I hate to see low numbers up, but what have you. Make sure you like and share. I believe that this is going to be good. I believe that you guys are going to learn a lot on tonight. This is how the enemy works. Let's get the numbers up to 50. Let's get the numbers up to 50 people that have are engaging in it. Like and share. We're at 39. We got 11 more to go, and we'll get into the message. I want to always encourage engagement. I never want to encourage people to spectate, because I think you get the most out of a lesson whenever you begin to engage. Let's get 2 more people, and then we will be ready. 2 more people. That's like. Make sure you're sharing it as well. 2 more people like and share. Let's make sure that you're sharing it as well. All right. So I'm trying to show you how, and this is a little bit of demonology. When you are a young woman and you're raped, you're molested, your parents don't have any revelation or information, you're going to a bunch of religious churches where there is no power. I'm trying to show you how a seductress is made. I'm trying to show you about this siren spirit. When you find yourself in this situation where you're in a house and you got an uncle that's coming into your bedroom, maybe taking advantage of you. You got all of these bad things happening and nobody seems to have power. The only person that seems to have power is the bad guy, the bad person, the people that keep coming in. They're raping, molesting you. You go to school, you deal with bullies. No matter what, you deal with people who have these measures of power. Nobody around you seems to have any revelation. Now, you got family. Let's say you got a family that go to church and they're just religious. They take you to a church where they tell you you shouldn't wear hair or makeup. You shouldn't be pretty. You shouldn't attempt to be pretty. You shouldn't shave your armpits. You need to wear nothing but skirts all the time because you're a female. They teach you basically that you have to remain even powerless and you need to be under a man. But daddy didn't even protect you. Maybe he wasn't there, or maybe he was in a home and he didn't protect you, or maybe he was taking advantage of you. All you see is power. You start realizing how powerful power is, if that makes sense. And you go to this religious church and they have no power. They can't cast out demons. They can't raise the dead. All they can do is tell you what to do. I want you to hear me because I'm trying to show you how the enemy plays. Then you get older. One day, that body starts to fill out. You get you get some breasts that come in, a little bit of butt. And then you realize when you go, you got guys pulling over and they talking to you and they like, man. And you realize, I have a little power. I'm trying to show you how the devil trains people to walk in whatever it is he wants them to walk in. You realize in that moment, guys out here begging me. They're begging me for my phone number. You get in a relationship and, maybe if you were attacked a lot as a child, and there's a lot of lessons on this, but you were attacked a lot as a child. And let's say you go out here and you get yourself raped, you know, and not you get yourself raped, but you end up getting raped. You feel powerless, right? You're really being trained. Believe it or not, the enemy has an idea as to what he wants you to become, but you feel powerless in that moment. You feel like, here it is, I went on this date and this happened to me. You feel powerless. You want power. You got all these guys that are coming after you, and you start learning how to utilize or harness the power of your femininity. So now you say, that's not happening to me anymore. That's not happening to me anymore. You said that's what happened to my mother. She was crazy. And that's what, when you say that, it makes me think about this. Where there's a lot of trauma but no revelation, you end up with people who are insane. That's what insanity is no revelation coupled with trauma. So a lot of times people, they start trying to figure out how to save or how to protect themselves. Now you have this woman who still has a desire to be in a relationship. That hasn't left. She has a desire to be married. That hasn't left. But she sees men as monsters. She sees, so she realizes, or she comes to the belief that I have to remain in control. She starts noticing that doors are opening for her because she's beautiful. She starts noticing that people are worshiping her shape. She starts noticing that there are guys out there that want to get with her, but she's out of their league. And these guys would do anything for her. This is the development and the establishment of her kingdom. These guys would bust somebody's head for her because, she's able to friend zone them. They want to be with her so badly. She starts realizing the power of her femininity. She starts watching television. She learns how to look at a man, when to look at a man, how to read a man. She learns how to control men, how to remain in control, because being out of control means being powerless. So she feels she needs to be in control. She gets into relationships and she becomes very strategic in who she dates. When a man comes up to her, she looks at him and she measures her power in that moment. If he looks at her and he looks deeply into her eyes and he seems to be moved, she decides, I want to talk to him. But if she comes across that guy who is a serial whore, he sleeps with everybody, and she realizes when she's looking at him, she has no power over him. She realizes that I can't do anything with him. She decides to reject him in some cases, or she may engage him just as a challenge. But the enemy has trained her from a child. Her greatest fear is losing control. Her greatest fear is no longer being in the driver's seat. I hate when I get messages when I'm on live. But her greatest fear is no longer being in the driver's seat of her life. So she takes control. She takes control. She gets into a relationship with guys and she plays a bunch of mind games, and she realizes I can actually get a lot. Now, I want you to imagine this. She's still relatively angry with men, because that's what happens when you have a lack of revelation, but a whole lot of trauma, is that you start this thing called generalization. So she begins to generalize men. And so in her generalization, she still wants a relationship. So she has a slight hatred towards men, but she gets in relationships, and because of her hatred towards men, she has a hatred towards men on one hand, but she believes that she loves the man that she's with. She hates his gender. She hates what she believes he is prone to, but she thinks she loves the man. Now you come to understand why she starts trying to control him. Because what she's doing is she's trying to kill what she thinks is in there. The male part. She starts to destroy his masculinity. She starts to castrate him, and all the while trying to hold on to him at the same time. She starts trying to castrate them, and then all the while trying to hold on to the man at the same time. Who you are talking about, or we're talking about a woman who has a marine spirit. We're talking about the marine kingdom. The spirits in the marine kingdom are oftentimes attached to or affiliated with or responsible for, I think responsible for is the right word, divorce, promiscuity, abortions, um, obsession with beauty, the seductiveness, the adulteress. These are spirits that come in the marine kingdom. The octopus is considered is mind control spirit. So whenever somebody gets control, or somebody comes into your life and they get a certain measure of control over your mind, then you can pick up an octopus. But octopus spirit, it is also in the marine kingdom. So let's go back a little bit in history, and we're going to talk about how she became how she was, not just the rape and the molestation and all of the bad things that happened. There is even more history behind it, because I believe that if you can go into the history of a situation, I believe that if you can go into the past, not just what happened to her, but you go through the generations, you can find a seed. And if you find the seed, you can uproot it. Most of the times when we're dealing with the mermaid spirit, or when we're dealing with issues like that in a family, 9 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10, somebody in the family played with witchcraft. Somebody in generations past played with witchcraft. And they didn't understand the covenant behind witchcraft. They didn't understand the agreements that they were making when they got into that stuff. And a lot of times we get really upset that our parents weren't necessarily the parents that we needed them to be. And I oftentimes, whenever I'm coaching people, I remind them that, okay, we have access to the internet. We have access to information. Our parents didn't have access to information like that. I know some people can say, well, they had the library. Do you know how hard it was to go through a library? Do you know how tiresome it was? Now consider when you're dealing with a poor family who couldn't afford to go to the library like that. Or I know for my family, whenever we did go to the library, a lot of times we didn't get the books back on time, and we had to pay fees or what have you. But they didn't have access at their fingertips to log on and hear somebody like me going live and teaching them about this. So consequently, they had to utilize what they knew to raise you, which was they didn't know that much. A lot of times, now let's just go back into history. When you go back into history, the siren spirit, let me say this before I move on, is associated with contracts. It's always associated with covenants and agreements. The siren spirit is a marine spirit that likes to affiliate itself with covenants and agreements. Now, okay, let's go back a little bit deeper. How did our grandparents or great grandparents or what have you get into that? We've talked about that before. Witchcraft. A lot of times, what happened was you had and this can be up for debate, but a lot of times you had men, for example, way back in those days. Now we can go back to slavery. Talk about the stud. We talked about that, how they were removed. They were brought in to impregnate a woman and brought out of that where they weren't raising their children or what have you. They were raised in fear. Slaves were denied education. Then you have the history of witchcraft that came out of Africa, what they were practicing, ancestral worship and stuff like that. So you had a whole lot that was on that slave. Now, of course, it's not just black folks, because white people were into witchcraft as well, and there are different forms and different extensions and different levels of witchcraft. That's important to know. But let's just go back into the African American heritage. So you have great great grandma back in the day, and I need you guys to understand this, especially for those that grandparents were in the South. And I know I've kind of said this before, but I think it's important for me to reiterate it for people who may be new to my channel. Do me a favor, if you're just coming on, make sure that you like and share this. Make sure that you like and share this. I believe that this is going to be good. Make sure that you like and share it. Let's get some likes in here. Let's get some likes in here. Let's get the numbers up to about 100 likes. I love to see the engagement. Let's get some likes up in here. Let's get some likes. So you had great, 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 great grandma and them back then. Let's just deal with the African heritage, and how that witchcraft was able to not only follow us to the United States, but follow us generation to generation to generation to generation. You had great, 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 great grandma or great, great grandma. Most of them, when they came out of slavery, they still had to deal with heavy, heavy, heavy levels of oppression. And they weren't going to necessarily trust 100% what they deemed to be the white man's religion. Because a lot of things that, they were taught, Sometimes, it could have been tainted. They weren't taught to read or what have you. And so they had to basically listen. Well, slaves did. Slaves weren't taught to read, so they just was taught. They had to just kind of rely on what they heard. And even when slavery was over, with a lot of African Americans never learned how to read. I knew that my grandmother, for example, she didn't know how to read. My grandmother on my mother's side did not know how to read. So you have these women who are in the racially in the South, and they're married to guys who are dealing with a curse that is brought on by slavery of not knowing how to stay in a relationship. That's the spirit. They don't know how to stay in a relationship. So you had great, 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 great granddaddy or great, great granddaddy who's in a relationship with great, great grandma, or he's married to great, great grandma. They got a bunch of children, and because they didn't know birth control back in those days, they had it. But if you were poor, you probably weren't going to have it. And there was no education, or there was little to no education about sex. So now you got people who are broke and who are being oppressed, scared to go to the store, a lot of segregation. Granddaddy was stressed out. Granddaddy was stressed out. He was stressed out. So many of them got on that moonshine and what have you. And moonshine was this illegal alcohol that they used to make. Witchcraft was not something that was seen as bad if you had good intentions. In many cases, it wasn't something that was seen as bad if you had good intentions. So you got granddaddy out there drinking that moonshine, working his job and all this other stuff. You got grandma at home with between 7 to 10 children. Granddaddy goes out there, he does his thing, and he starts cheating. And when he starts cheating, he comes under the influence of another female. I love that term influence, because it helps you to understand, like when you think about, alcohol or drugs, what do they say? You're under the influence. Well, he came under the influence of another female. And I want you to imagine this situation. He comes home from work. He's stressed out. He's frustrated. Grandma's at home. She's stressed out. She can't really get a job. If she does get a job, it doesn't pay very much. So it's better for her to just stay at home. Because most jobs, the only jobs that they allowed women to work in was you could be a nurse, an administrative assistant, or a teacher. And you got paid less, well, about 1/4 or even less than what men made. Now, that's for women. Now, I want you to imagine being an African American woman. It became even more difficult to make money. So you got great grandma sitting at home with, let's say, 10 children. She's got 10 children, and great granddad is out there. He's working his tail off, working 12-hour days, 14-hour days, trying to take care of his family, and he's still poor. They're still struggling. He feels like any man would feel who feels helpless to defend his family. When he goes, he has to deal with racism. He has to deal with a lot of stuff. He feels pretty much helpless. So he starts kind of leaning to moonshine and drinking and stuff like that. And then he ends up finding or meeting a woman who had a siren spirit, if you want to know the truth. He ends up meeting, and you guys have heard me tell this example before, Ms. Lula May from up the street or from around the corner. Ms. Lula May is a beautiful African American woman who has no children, or she may have children. They don't necessarily live with her, or she pretty much neglects them, or what have you. She lives around the corner, and Miss Lula May, she know how to keep her house. And when I say she know how to keep her house, I'm talking about she's going to keep it clean. She's going to have all of these things there. So he comes home to grandma, and I want you to imagine this. He comes home to grandma or great-great-grandma. The house is a mess. She's trying her best. She got 10 kids. She's trying to keep up with them. They screaming, they hollering. She's trying to help them with their homework. She got all of this stuff going on. She's stressed out. When he come home, she's frustrated. There's not enough money to feed the kids. She's just overwhelmed. So when he comes home, it's a bit much. But when he go to Miss Lula May house, because she got some marine spirits, she doesn't have any children. He go to Miss Lula May house, she doesn't have any children. Let's just say she don't have any kids, or, she gave her kids to her parents or what have you. He go to Miss Lula May house, it's quiet up in there. You got this beautiful woman who's seductive, who has trouble getting pregnant. or seemingly has trouble getting pregnant. Granddad goes over there and he keeps messing with this woman, and he comes under her influence because when he goes over there, see, he took great great grandma's virginity. So her experience is limited to what she's learned with him. But his experience, Lula May, she'd have been around the block a few times. So she know how to put it on. She know all the positions. She doing all this stuff to granddaddy he ain't never seen done before in his whole wild life. She over there, she got granddaddy over there, legs over his head, and got him screaming like a little girl. And sorry, I shouldn't have said that. But got him screaming like a girl. But she sits up there and she has granddaddy all twisted up. Granddaddy, when he goes home to grandma, it's just kids, noise, and complaining. Lula May is peace, apple pie, and all of that. So granddaddy starts making it up in his mind that he wants to leave grandma, great grandma, for Miss Lula May. When he goes home, he's on that moonshine as well. He goes home. And I'm telling you, I want to challenge y'all before I go any deeper into this. Make sure you're liking this. Make sure you're liking this. Like and share. I want to challenge you. If your grandparents came from the South, if you got anybody that knows your grandparents' story, ask them if this happened. I can almost guarantee you're going to find that many of this story that I'm telling you, it was very prevalent. It is very common. I am reaching into the history books, and I'm teaching you something that well, not necessarily the history books, but I'm teaching you something that happened and why a lot of you may wrestle with siren spirits or mermaid spirits. Okay. He starts threatening to leave grandma. Grandma does what any human being does. She freaks out. She tries to hold on to her marriage, but after a while, grandma get kind of tired of it. It's human nature to just say, you know what? He want to let that moonshine and that woman take him out. I ain't about to deal with this. Now, she's limited in her education, limited in her knowledge, limited. So grandma takes her 10 children and she shows up at her parents' house. She done packed their bags and she said, I'm leaving Will Earl. I'm leaving him. He be beating on me. He cheating on me with his husband up the street. And he giving some of his money away to this husband and all of that. Her parents looked her in the face and blamed her. That was because they were very limited in their education, and they sent her back home. They said, go back home to your husband and you need to fix it. Fix your face up. Put some lipstick on from time. Fix yourself up. They sent her back into that environment, and she realized, I am alone in this. Like, I really don't have any help, and I can't feed all of these kids by myself. And if I went out there and get a job, they're not going to even pay me enough to take care of myself, let alone these 10 children. And then granddad gets worse and worse and worse and worse. So what great grandma did was she tried to talk him out of it. She tried everything. She may even called him one day when he was drunk and beat the brakes off of granddad. Still didn't do anything. Granddad gets bolder. He comes home less and less. And then one day, he makes it clear. He stops hiding Miss Lula May. He said, what? She take care of me. She take care of me. She do what you ain't do. She do what you don't do. Grandma realizes that he's about to leave her and she's not going to have anything for her or her children. So what does grandmother do? She talks to one of her best friends about it. She talks to some people and they say, oh, he got roots on him. I'm coming out of Mississippi, guys. I'm telling you, I'm giving you a story. Please, I'm challenging you to go ask some of your relatives. I'm giving you the story of what happened. I'm challenging you to go to ask your relatives. Play this for your grandma. Play this for your great grandma. I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you right now. They say she got roots on him. Roots mean witchcraft. She got roots on him. And great grandma said, what do I do? She said, the friend said, we go over here to Madam Diana. Madam Diana, she got this thing where she can break roots off of people. So in her case, the witch was seen as favorable. So, and of course, we know that witchcraft is ungodly, but she is desperate. She doesn't know what to do. So grandma says, all right, how much is it? They said $5. She said, "Well, I'm gonna get $5 from." They told grandma whatever she needed to do, or she probably loaned grandma the $5. Well, have you, grandma hid money, or she stole the money out of granddaddy's pocket when he was half drunk. She stole some money and she hid it in the house, or she hid it in her bra, what have you. But she went and she paid that witch. That's how you got into that contract. That's how you got into that contract. She paid that witch, and that witch sat back and said, "Okay, yeah, she does have roots on him. This is what you need to do. This is the agreement you need to enter into, and then you'll have your husband back." And grandma went and did it. And guess what, y'all? Want to guess? It worked, or it seemed to work, because now all of a sudden, great granddaddy went down to the to his husband's house and caught her in bed with another man, beat the brakes off of her, ended up getting arrested, and grandma had to come bail him out. I just told y'all, I just gave you a history lesson. I just told y'all what happened in many of your families. Granddad ended up being back at home with grandma, just wasting away. Either he came off the moonshine or he just wasted away at home on that moonshine. But at the end of the day, grandma kept her man at your expense. Because when she entered into that demonic contract, she put every child of hers under a demonic contract. Now, the mermaid spirit is typically associated with contracts, because what the mermaid spirit pretty much does, especially when you're dealing with a female, and of course the siren spirit can be in a man or a male or a female. But what this spirit does is it specializes in contracts. So if there's something that you want, then a lot of times people go, and when they're making these agreements, and witchcraft, what they're doing is they're making an agreement with a siren spirit. That's who they're entering into an agreement with. Because, for example, you have people who've gotten into agreements with siren spirits because they were about to lose their job. Typically, they do this out of desperation. A lot of times people do it out of desperation. Somebody may be about to lose their job, or frustrated because they got a supervisor or a co-worker who's trying to make them lose their job, and they've been written up 2 times and they're about to get written up for the 3rd time, and they know that they're going to get fired, and they're kind of freaking out, and they feel like they need their job for whatever reason. And you have people that will go to witches for reasons like that, as a point of, as an act of desperation in an attempt to keep their jobs. And when they do that, they don't realize what they're doing. They don't understand that they're putting themselves and their children under a contract. They will go over there and then there are other people who get into witchcraft because they want a promotion on the job. Their jobs are not threatened. They are secure in their jobs, yet and still they're ambitious and they want a promotion on the job. There are people who get into witchcraft because there are some women who get into witchcraft to keep their husbands. Then again, there are women that get into witchcraft to steal other people's husbands. There are people who will get into witchcraft. So I've given you guys this example. There are many cases I've seen Christian women fall into this trap because the enemy is always trying to get you back. Once he's made a decision regarding you, he's going to try to get some type of reconciliation between you and him. I've seen Christian women fall into this. The Bible tells us to test the spirit. So I've seen Christian women fall into this trap where they come across a man and they think God said that that's their husband. This is the reason why you should have a pastor. This is the reason why you should have somebody that you're submitting your dreams to, that you're not always, so you're not always left to interpret stuff by yourself. But if you're not submitting it, or you don't have a leader to submit it to, you're left to lean to your own understanding, which the Bible tells you not to do. And a lot of times what that does is it causes you to become very religious, prideful, and high-minded. So you have some women that go to a church, and just because they're in a church doesn't mean they're submitted to the pastor. But they'll go to a church and they see a guy and they're like, and then the next thing you know, they start, believing that they heard God said that that was their husband, or maybe they end up having a dream about the guy and they believe that the dream came from God and that God was telling them that that's their husband. So a lot of times Christian women will pull this number here, God, and we're going to make up a name for this guy. Let's just call him Mark. All right, God, is Mark the one? I had a dream about him, and I didn't feel like the dream was demonic because, in the dream we were at the park and we were just, having a picnic, and he said, do you like your ring? And then, in the dream I looked at my hand and it was a big diamond ring, and I said, yeah, thank you, hubby. And then I woke up, and not realizing that's a spirit husband, she thinks that dream means that she's supposed to get married to Mark. A lot of Christian women do this. Um, so whenever she sees Mark, let's just say Mark goes to her church. Whenever she sees Mark at church, she's convinced in her mind that this is the man that God wants her to marry. And then she keeps getting what she believes to be confirmation. And then the next thing she keeps having dreams about him. And then Mark may be a little bit on the flirtatious side. So she starts thinking that, oh my God, this is the man of God. This is the man for me. She starts getting caught in her imaginations. When you start getting caught in your imaginations, I want you to understand this. The enemy's having a field day with you because you're now in making an investment. You're investing your time into it. You're investing your time. You're also, when you get caught up in your imagination, you're also doing something called meditating. That's called meditation. So meditation takes something from your head to your heart. The Bible says, guard your heart, for out of it pours the issues of life. It takes it out of the subconscious and brings it into the conscious, which is it takes it out of the conscious and brings it into the subconscious. The subconscious is also the heart. So you're meditating on it to the point where it becomes a belief. And now once it gets into the heart, now it's going to constantly keep causing you to have dreams. Whenever you get around him, you're going to experience a lot of things. And so this is what a lot of Christian women have done. They kept getting around Mark. They kept feeling like they got confirmation or what have you. Then Mark all of a sudden shows up at church one day, and he's holding hand in hand with a girl. And they looking at like, he's like, oh, hey, I want to introduce you to my fiance. Amy, introduce yourself. And Amy looks, she says, hi, how are you? And you're like, oh, I'm fine. How you doing? But you're hurt, frustrated, because you believe that God told you that was your husband. God told you, you're convinced. Can't nobody tell you nothing. You go home, you're hurt, you're frustrated, and then you hear a voice that says, that's still your husband. That's still your husband. She's a Jezebel. She's a witch sent to interrupt my plans for you. You think that's God because you ain't tested that. You ain't went to nobody on that. You haven't tested that. You think that's God. And he said, why the name have to be Mark? Because I wanted to come out. I'm always doing Libra, Tyrone, and all that. So, all right. So, you think that's God. Because you're in your car driving from church crying. And then you hear that voice. You're like, okay. Now you start praying against the relationship. You don't even realize that man may have met somebody that God approved for his life. And now you're getting into witchcraft because you're convinced that God told you that's your husband. You get into witchcraft, a lot of Christian women. So now you start praying against the relationship. Jezebel, you loose him in the name of Jesus. I bind you, devil. You will loose him. You loose Mark. Then you start calling the girl out in your prayers. Father, I know that you told me that we're gonna say, I know you told me that I'm Mark's wife, and now he's with this Jezebel Amy. Father, I ask that you destroy their relationship because it is not of you, Lord. You're now praying against the will of another human being. You're now praying against the will of another human being. All right, we went into history. Do you want to go further back into history? Do you want to go further back into history? How this siren spirit gets in? Because what it does is it's going to constantly keep deceiving and getting you to go into demonic agreements and to practice witchcraft. That is the goal of marine spirits, or whenever you start dealing with spirit wives. So now let's go back a little bit further into history. Let's go back past great grandma and them. How did these spirits get into the human race? Because the first question is, do mermaids really exist? Because we've seen a lot of stuff. Disney has introduced us to a lot of fairy tales. And if Disney introduced it, then we can't believe it because it's a fairy tale that was born in the mind of another human being. Not true. That human being had an encounter or an experience that they decided to animate or what have you. And a lot of times they, made it into something beautiful. But if you go all the way back, the first question I think that we would have to answer is, can a demon get inside of an animal? Can a demon get inside of an animal? Can a demon get inside of an animal? The answer is obvious. Yes. That question is answered in the book of Genesis when Satan gets into the body of a snake. When Satan gets into the body of a snake, right? Then there are the pigs. When Jesus cast the demon out of the men, because there are two, Mark and Matthew have two different accounts of that same event. I think one of them talks about there being one man, the other talks about two, but it was actually two guys. But the demons asked Jesus to cast them into the pigs. If a demon can be inside of a human being, it can be inside of an animal. So are there creatures in the sea that may be filled with demons? Potentially, possibly. But when we start talking about the siren spirit, when we start talking about the mermaid spirit, we are talking about a demonic entity. We're talking about a demon. We're talking about a spirit that is operating, but spirits cannot operate outside of bodies. They need bodies to operate. They need bodies to operate. So when we start going back into history, we say, well, how does or where did the mermaid or the siren spirit originate? We can't necessarily answer that. There are a lot of debate. Theologians have all of these different theories as to how this, this thing could have come about, because even in the world, they actually believe in mermaids. When you deal with people from Haiti and many parts of Africa, they talk about mermaid encounters. They talk about encounters. The mermaid, the siren, yes, but they talk about encounters that they've had. And it's typically going to be seen in places where there are high level witchcraft. Most of the people who are going to have a whole lot of encounters are people who are practicing witchcraft. They get into high levels of witchcraft and they begin to have visual encounters, tangible encounters with these spirits. In America, we don't necessarily have these tangible encounters because we are not so into witchcraft. But when you go into places like New Orleans, places that are on the water, that's where you're going to find a lot of marine spirits. When you go into places like that, you will find people that will tell you they have engaged or visually seen stuff like this. Okay, so when we go back into history, we come to understand that a demon can get into an animal. A demon can get into an animal. And there is a such thing as a demonic hybrid, because demons got into the daughters of men. And we can go to Genesis 6 and we can read that again. And it came to pass when men began, and this is 6:1. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto men, that the sons of God, which are angels or demons. Now, sons of God doesn't necessarily mean demons, it just means angels. But demons were considered to be the sons of God as well because they were angels. But the sons of God saw the daughters of men, and that's human, that they were fair, which means beautiful. And they took them wives, all of which they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with men, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of man, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. So there is a such thing as a demonic hybrid. There is a such thing as a demonic hybrid. So if we can have a demon hybrid between a human, if we can have a demon hybrid between a human and a demon, then you can bet your by golly, wow, there can be a demon hybrid between a demon and an animal. There will be a demon. There can be I just want to get you, engage you into thinking, because I think that in the United States, many times we just kind of read our Bibles, but we really don't engage the word. We read our Bibles, but we don't really think. I think, honestly, I think that we're afraid to think because we're afraid of becoming heretic. We're afraid that maybe I'll say something that's heretic. Maybe I'll say something that's demonic. Maybe I'll say something that is ungodly, or maybe I'll be judged. Like for me, for example, right now I'm out here and I'm teaching you guys something that's controversial. And in order to teach something along this one, you're going to have to study a little bit And then two, you have to be willing to deal with the religious, because religious people are afraid. They're very fearful. Religious people, the thing that controls them is the spirit of fear. They have been taught to kind of embrace a corner of doctrine and stay there. And if you come outside of that corner of doctrine, it freaks them out because they think that you're teaching heresy. They think that you're going to go to hell, or you're going to teach people to go to hell, or what have you, because they don't necessarily engage the word like that. They don't study the word like that. What's going on? But they don't engage the word. They don't engage the word like that, or what have you. And so, if there can be a hybrid between a human and a demon, there can be a hybrid between a demon and an animal. If there can be a hybrid between a human and a demon, there can be a hybrid between a demon and an animal. So when we start talking about marine spirits, first and foremost, we got to understand that the word marine means water. When you start talking about marine spirits, these are spirits that are going to be commonly found around waters. You know, when Jesus was going to, I think it was Gethsemane. Let me see what's the name of that place, because I want to make sure that I pronounce it right. I'm pretty sure it's Geth. Come on. Yeah, Gethsemane. When he was going there, I think it was that. No, it was Gadarenes. When he was going to the Gadarenes, when he was going there, he was met by a heavy storm, and he was in the bow of the ship sleeping, and his disciples were up and they were freaking out, and they go wake him up and they say, "Master, care is not that we perish." And so what he's doing is he's going to this place, and you know, we can argue about that, but he's going to a place, and what he's experiencing in that moment is demonic activity, which is why he was able to get up and rebuke the storm. That's the reason he was able to get up and rebuke the storm. Otherwise, he could have just silenced the winds or what have you, but he rebuked the storm because the storm was demonic within itself. And then as soon as he gets there, he's met by these two men. Again, Matthew and Mark have two different accounts of it, but they're just having two different perspectives of the same event. And they are insane, bound in chains. Well, they had been bound in chains. They had been ripping chains off. People tried to put chains on them. So he comes in contact with these two men who are bound by marine spirits. And then what ends up happening is he ends up taking them through deliverance. And those spirits say, "Hey, can you cast us into the swine? Don't judge us just yet. Don't send us to hell just yet. Don't send us to the lake of fire just yet. Can we go into the swine?" And we know what happens. The swine then they run off a cliff and jump into the water. Why would the swine do that? Why would he say, why would these demons say, and the name of the spirits were legion, which means many, and I think that's about 2,000 demons. I could be wrong, but I know it's more, it's thousands of demons. Okay. Why would those spirits in that moment say, "Hey, cast us into the pigs," and then the pigs go run and commit suicide? Why? Because they were marine spirits. They went back to where they came from. They needed to get inside of a body. They went back into the water. These were marine spirits. So like I said, one of the things I want to engage on, or I want to encourage you to do, is to not just read the Bible, but I want to encourage you to study the Bible. Okay, I want to encourage you to study the Bible. All right, so I've had this conversation. It's been a dominant conversation this week because I found that a lot of women are struggling with marine spirits or what have you. And it's very common in the United States, but it's not necessarily something that we have to address. So, it's something we do have to address. Sorry, I got distracted by the comments. But it's something we do have to address, but it's not necessarily something that we address a lot. And I think that right now we're coming into a season where God is going to bring a lot of revelation as to what we've been dealing with. And before we move on, I want to make sure that you understand, I don't want you guys to come here and think that all of your issues are just demons, because these are systems, beliefs, and mindsets. Is ignorance. That means a lack of revelation. Ignorance, the root word of ignorance is ignore. That means information is present, but you choose to ignore it. And all of these things can be dismantled through knowledge. They can be dismantled, or you can begin to destroy a system through knowledge. But in all that getting, you have to get understanding. Understanding. I love that the fact. I love the fact that the word "under" is understanding. Understanding allows you to go further and deal with the root of a thing. Knowledge allows you to confront the thing, to identify it. Understanding allows you to go get to the root of it. And then wisdom is the principal thing. Wisdom is the principal thing. So that's going to be, the overhead. So that's what we want to deal with. We want to make sure that we're getting wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. We don't necessarily have that when it comes to demonology. And to be honest with you, I don't think many Americans are interested in demonology. Many Americans kind of just want to live their lives. And, they want to know, they'll say things like, oh, the devil is attacking, or I bind the devil, or what have you. But not a lot of people want to learn about what type of spirits that they may be addressing. And this is the reason why many Christians have been really ineffective in their warfare tactics, because a lot of times people just say, I bind the devil, say, leave me alone, or what have you, you slew-footed devil. And it is always better to know what you're dealing with so that you can begin to dismantle the system of that thing. All right. So spirit, when you're dealing with the marine kingdom, you're going to have spirits that are commonly around places where there's a lot of water. Now, when you go into places where there is like an island, or a place where there's a lot of water, a lot of places in the Caribbean, a lot of places in Africa, even a lot of places in America, islands that are considered to be in the Americas, you're going to find, well, the Caribbean is one of them, but you're going to find that there's going to be a lot of demonic activity. One, there's going to be a lot of witchcraft. Where there is ignorance, where there is a lack of knowledge, there's going to be a lot of witchcraft. Where there's a lack of knowledge, there's going to be heavy witchcraft. Because when people don't necessarily know, we are spirits, so therefore we're going to be spiritual. And if you don't know the Holy Spirit, if you're not really studying Him, then you will get into spiritual activity without the Holy Spirit. So you're going to find a lot of people in those areas are going to be into witchcraft. And not only are you going to find that they are into witchcraft, you will find very seductive women, beautiful women, in many cases, who are oftentimes very seductive. And it's not just in those countries, don't get me wrong, because it's all over the United States right now, right? The United States probably has some of the most seductive women you'll ever come in contact with, but they have a mermaid spirit. Most of them have marine spirits in them. And because we are unaware of it, they just go on about life trying to figure out why they can't stay in a relationship. They just go on about life trying to figure out why they keep dealing with reproductive issues. They just go on about life trying to figure out why they are going through cycles of defeat, because we don't necessarily educate ourselves about marine spirits or siren spirits. Again, when you're dealing with siren or the marine spirit, or the mermaid spirit, it is a spirit typically associated with contracts. I remember watching this, and this is up for debate, so please don't come at me, because I already know that somebody's going to come in my comments and say something. But when I first moved, before I got into the ministry of Deliverance, I started watching a lot of TV Joshua. And it was really interesting to watch. And I know I've had people to reach out to me and say, oh, TV Joshua's not real. It's fake, it's phony. We laugh at it over here. I've had people from Africa to say, hey, we laugh at it over here. Then I've had people from Africa to say, oh no, I love myself some TV Joshua. And so there's a lot of controversy surrounding him. But I actually watched him, and one of the things I can say, a lot of stuff that the Lord taught me when he would interview people who were former witches. I'm sorry, they got that information from somewhere, because it was truthful information. And there was this one particular case where there was this woman. I don't know if this was TV Joshua, but I just remember this was an African woman. But this woman was a former witch, and she was being interviewed. And she was talking about how she got into witchcraft. She wanted to be famous. She wanted to be wealthy. That was something that was an obsession of hers. And somebody told her, hey, you can go to the waters and you can summon up mommy water, which is what the mermaid spirit is often referred to in many parts of Africa as mommy water. You can go and summon up that, and she'll give you what you want. And she did the ritual and all this stuff they told her to do. She went to the waters, and then eventually something came out of the water that was considered the mermaid spirit and made an agreement with her and told her that she would have to sleep with 20 men a day. That she would have to sleep with 20 men a day in order to get that. Say, yeah, I'll give it to you, but you got to sleep with 20 men a day. What I find interesting about the demonic kingdom is that a lot of times they'll give you a contract, or they'll give you an agreement. Like, people start dealing with heavy level witchcraft, when they get to the point where they have tangible encounters with demons and stuff like that. They will give you contracts, or they'll give you agreements, but most of the times if they give them an agreement, it's going to be something unrealistic and pretty much darn near impossible. It's going to be something unrealistic and pretty much darn near impossible. And every contract has small print. So it's like, okay, this woman, her encounter, what she said was that she had been told to sleep with 20 men a day. Now, I was saying this to a sister in Christ the other day on the phone. I said, can you imagine? It's 11:56 p.m. and you got a man in front of her that's impotent. And he's number 20. You know, she didn't got 19. This is number 20. And bro, man, and she like, hurry up. Hurry up. I got to get this. And it doesn't work. She's unable to sleep with the man because old boy is impotent. And so the next thing you know, she has failed her end of the contract. And throughout her family now, she has children. 2 of her sons died. Her children have children and their kids are dying. And there are a lot of things what happened. The contract is always going to be unrealistic. And then Satan's a liar too. He's never going to own up to his end of the bargain, which is why getting into witchcraft is absolutely asinine. But when people get into witchcraft, it's because they don't understand Satan. They think that, they think that there's something good about witchcraft. So I want to read a few facts to you. Spirit wives and mermaids can be one and the same. I think somebody asked me this question, and I think I answered it erroneously on the last one. I could be wrong. I don't remember the question. But if somebody asked me, can a mermaid spirit be a spirit wife? I think I may have answered no, yes, they can. A mermaid or a siren can serve as a spirit spouse, just like there is what they call a merman. There's what they call a merman spirit as well. The same is true for the spirit husband. They can be mermaid. Now, not all of them are going to be siren spirits. Remember, we're using the word siren and mermaid interchangeably. These demons create covenants, or better yet, contracts. These are agreements. Let me tell you a little bit about a contract. A contract is not always written down on paper. A contract is not always you going and sitting down with a witch. You can enter into a contract or agreement with somebody, like if a guy says, promise me you'll never leave me. That's a contract. The minute you go into agreement with him, let me see. There's something else the Lord's right behind me of. Let me see. Pull up the scripture. But the minute you go into agreement, that's an agreement that has to be broken. All right, let me see this. Give me a second. All right, okay. Proverbs 6:1. And this is one of the reasons why I try to stay away from debt. Because the Bible tells us to owe no man but to love him. Because when you go into debt, what you're doing is you're getting into an agreement. So my son, if thou be surety for thy friend, if thou hast stricken thy hand with a stranger, thou art snared with the words of thy mouth. Let's read the English Standard Version, because I think that would be a lot easier. Give me a second. All right. My son, if you have put up security for your neighbor or your friend, have given your pledge for a stranger, if you are snared in the words of your mouth, caught in the words of your mouth, then do this, my son, and save yourself. For you have come into the hand of your neighbor. Go hasten and plead urgently with your neighbor. Give no sleep to your eyes, and your eyelids no slumber. Save yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter, like a bird from the hand of the fowler. What this is basically, if you come into agreement, or you surety for a stranger is the King James version of it. If you have shaken your hands in an agreement or made a contract with a friend, in this, the Lord says, give no sleep to your eyes. Try to beg your friend, like, do whatever you got to do to get out of that agreement. Do whatever you got to do to get out of that agreement. And consequently, honestly, in America, getting into agreements like debt is actually very popular. It's normalized here in the United States. As a matter of fact, it's considered abnormal if you happen to be somebody who tries to stay away from debt. If you happen to be somebody who says, well, even though I want to get a car or maybe even need to get a car, I'm not going to get something on credit. I'm going to just wait it out and, just pay for what I'm going to pay for what I can afford in that moment. That's considered to be unusual. That's considered to be um, something that's unusual. All right, give me a second. All right, that's considered to be something that's unusual. So they create covenants and contracts, and these are agreements. Also, the enemy's always trying to get you to the enemy's always trying to ensnare you by the words of your mouth. He's always trying, and I want to be mindful because a lot of things that I could potentially say could be construed as legalistic, but I'm very mindful of some of the things that I say because I realize the power of words. And because I'm a wordsmith, because I'm a person that God has studying words, I'm very mindful of the power of words. So the enemy is always trying to get you to create a covenant. So I wanted you to understand that a covenant or a contract is not always you going and sitting down with a witch. A lot of times when you get into relationships, you go to saying stuff and making covenants and agreements with people, and you don't even realize that what you're doing, and you wonder why you're in a soul tie with that person, and it's because you made an agreement with that person. You told that dude, "I'll never leave you." You told that guy that I'm yours. You told that guy all of that stuff, and so whenever you did leave, you broke an agreement, and we can get into soul fragmentation and that, but I'm not going to go into that today. So I'll make sure we go to that another day. All right. Women who have siren spirits are oftentimes, one, obsessed with beauty. Women who have siren spirits are oftentimes very obsessed with beauty. Okay, I'll move on because I wanted to go back to history again. But women who have siren spirits are oftentimes very obsessed with beauty. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be beautiful. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be attractive. There's nothing wrong with makeup because a lot of people will argue with you about makeup. As a matter of fact, when I was studying this spirit, I found that there were a lot of religious teachings on it. And I think that this is why a lot of people kind of stray away from it, the topic within itself. Like people will teach on the spirit husband, the spirit wife, Jezebel, Ahab, and other marine spirits. But people have a tendency to stray away from the siren spirit because there's a lot of legalism that is surrounding this topic. A lot of times when people start talking about the marine spirit, when they start talking about the siren spirit, a lot of people who teach on it, they teach the concept that, makeup is of the devil and that if you wear makeup, you're going to pick up a demon. Demons don't get in because of stuff that you put on your body. They get in because of sin. That needs to be understood. They get in because of agreement. They don't get in because I went and got extensions. That's not how a demon gets in. They don't have a legal right to get into a person just because you go and put something, on your head or what have you. That's not how a demon gets in. But siren spirits are obsessed with beauty. People who have siren spirits are typically going to be obsessed with beauty. Now, there is such thing as a creative. We got to make a differentiation because some people who are creative are going to be, into beauty. They're going to be into makeup and they're going to be into things like that as well because they're creative. And so the way to tell the difference is a creative person is not necessarily going to be obsessed. A creative person is more so just loving the process. It's art to them. They can put makeup on their face, they can decorate themselves, but it's art to them. But you, at the same time, that same person has no problem taking the makeup off, and letting you see them. But when you start dealing with somebody that may be wrestling with the siren spirit, thank you, Sister Cassandra, God bless you. When you're dealing with somebody who has a siren spirit or is dealing with a siren spirit, it's not going to be easy for them because for them, many cases, they're going to disguise themselves. They're going to disguise themselves. They're going to put on, I got to offend you. These are going to be the women who basically lose their identities trying to look like somebody else, or they try to look like a different race. They don't look anything like themselves by the time they're done. Because they've lost their identities a long time ago. They don't know who they are. So this would be a woman who, let's say, for example, a black woman who puts a blonde wig on her head, some blue contacts in her eyes, and then she tries to shape shift her face to make it look more European or what have you. And she will not leave her house unless she has that on. She will not leave her house. She every time she goes somewhere, she's gonna have to have that blonde wig on or have some blonde wig on. She's gonna have to have those contacts in her eyes. That is a spirit in that female that has convinced her that she's unattractive, that she's ugly, and nobody's gonna want her. Obviously, she's gonna be dealing with rejection and stuff like that. But I'll give you a great example. And sorry if you guys are following, but a lot of the celebrities like Lil Kim, she's gonna have a siren spirit. That's a siren spirit that's going to be operating in that person. There's an obsession there. Whereas as a female, for example, when I look in the mirror, I'm going to always see things that I wish I can change, that I want to change about my face. And that's normal because I've been inundated or I've been exposed to American culture. I've been exposed to things. And because I've been exposed to it, it's normal for me to look and say, oh, I think I want to do this. But, I know not to get into that kind of stuff. And I know to pray that stuff down. I know to, overcome that by praying or what have you. And, asking the Lord to, right, it's Siren, it's a R-E-N. But to pray about it. But people who have a siren spirit are going to be obsessed. And not only obsessed, many times they're going to hide themselves. They're not going to be happy coming out of their houses looking a certain way. Like they don't ever want you to see them. They always want you to see like decorations all over them or what have you. Like they want to have long blue or green or pink hair. They'll probably baptize their face in makeup. They'll do a lot of things because of their insecurities. It causes great amount of insecurity. I think the most obvious one, and this can be said about many spirits in the marine kingdom, but people who have the siren spirit, especially women, tend to be very seductive. They tend to be very, 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 very seductive. To the point where many of them are known. Like we talked about that woman that great granddaddy went after, Miss Lula May. She had a siren spirit. They tend to be very seductive, because first and foremost, what that demon has to do is to tear down their identity, to make them feel like they are not worthy of anything. But then to get them then it begins to highlight their beauty, or it will highlight their lack of beauty or what they think is their lack of beauty. Whenever it starts highlighting their lack of what they think is their beauty, or where it starts to highlight them and tell them that they're ugly, many times they're going to go out there and they'll get themselves, a blonde wig, a long blonde wig, and put some blue contacts in their eyes or some green contacts in their eyes, and they will baptize their face in makeup, and they'll put all this stuff on, and they'll bury themselves in perfume. And I think that this is why so many deliverance ministers that get into the legalistic side of it, they think that all of those things are attributed to a siren spirit. So they encourage women not to wear makeup, not to wear any of those things. But I don't think it's the case that, women are getting into those things. I think when you start dealing with the extremity of a woman who doesn't love herself, because that's a sin within itself, or a woman who looks into the mirror and decides that she's ugly, and she decides that, hey, I want to hide my face. I want to do something to my face. I want to go and get my eyes, I want to get some surgery to make my eyes slanted. I want to get this. I want to have my cheekbone. And that's when you start getting into the extreme side. I think a lot of times many deliverance ministers, when they've taken women like this for taking them through deliverance, they notice a commonality that a lot of these women, were kind of, overly decorated. They overdid it. And they just started saying, okay, so that's the beauty industry. The Bible talks about adorning. And what God doesn't have a problem with us, doing our hair or making ourselves, just doing things that we feel like are creative or what have you. What he does have a problem with us is us relying on that stuff. He has a problem with us if I look in the mirror and I say, ooh, if I don't put this makeup on, ain't no man gonna want me. Right then and there, I'm putting my trust in that makeup and not God. I'm putting my trust in that makeup. So whenever you're dealing with somebody who has a spirit, they're going to be very seductive, even to the point that many of them will start to sleep with other people's husbands. And then there are a lot of people out there who have a siren spirit. They don't get into the adulterous part of it. Not as far as physically, but they like to have emotional contracts with men. They like to have emotional affairs with men. So A woman like that, for example, will go after a married man and try to become his friend. And when she becomes his friend, she'll act like his homegirl, but she'll also act like she is no soul fragmentation is not a new age. They New age movement has taken a lot of things that are taught by psychologists, and this is what causes the church. Thank you, Rick has God bless you. This is what causes the church to be so afraid of these words. Like when I come out and I start saying things like impact, there are so many people in the church who freak out because the new age movement is using those terms. But it's not new age. They're taking it from psychology and they're popularizing the terms. And what we do is a lot of times, a lot of us come and we'll teach. And what we do is we'll use that to bring them back to the kingdom. And a lot of times it can kind of get folks to freaking out. But when you're dealing with the seductress, which is a woman that's going to be filled with marine spirits, when you're dealing with the seductress, she likes to kidnap the attention of a married man and turn his heart away from his wife. She doesn't have to sleep with him. She may not even be interested in sleeping with him, but it's just the attention factor. She just wants his attention. So a lot of times she will present herself as everything that a man wants in a woman. She'll present herself as like whatever he doesn't have in his wife. So if the wife, let's say for example, isn't into makeup and hair and girly things, she'll present herself like every area that she notices that his wife, because she's going to be more obsessed with his wife because that demon wants to get into his wife. But she's going to be more obsessed with the wife than a woman. But what she's trying to do is remove the head, which is the man, from his home. And so what she has to do, she has to kidnap his attention. She has to distract him while other demons go after his wife. I can go there. But she has to distract him while every other spirit, because he's supposed to be the covering, goes after his wife and goes after his children. She has to distract him. So many times she's either going to have an affair with him, a physical affair, or an emotional affair with him. And in an emotional affair, the goal is just to make him regret marrying his wife. Make him think that he moved too fast. Make him think that, I could have had somebody like her. I could have had somebody like her if I had waited. Like if I had waited and not got married, when I got married, I could have been with her. And it's also to present herself as an option, just in case your relationship, you want to kind of come out. Thank you, Sister Lawana. God bless you. Just in case, it don't work between you and your wife, but it causes the man to turn his heart away from his wife. Emotional affairs many times are more potent than sexual affairs, because a lot of times men can get into a sexual affair and have no emotional connection. But whenever you start dealing with an emotional affair, that's more potent than a sexual affair. A sexual affair, the potency of a sexual affair is called evidence. Ain't so much I can teach y'all, but the potency of a sexual affair is evidence, like children, STD, or a female who lays next to your husband and puts him to sleep, because we know that once a man has given up his virtue, he is out like a light. And while he's laying there asleep, she ever so gracefully picks up her phone. Because that particular female realizes that, he's hitting it. He's probably not going to stick around. He's not going to commit or what have you. I need evidence. However, when you're dealing with a female that's trying to create an emotional affair, she's trying to create something more long-term and something more potent. Because if she creates an emotional affair with him, if she creates an emotional affair with him, he's more likely to leave his wife. He's more likely to leave his wife because when he gets into a relationship, now this woman has access to the very thing that God told us to guard. God says, guard your heart, for out of it pours the issues of life. God's dealing with the mind. So in that, she's able to cast herself. And what she's going to do, there are many levels to a man, or many facets to a husband. There is the husband, there's a protector, the provider, all of those things. So she will appeal, for example, to the protective side of him. So she'll say something like, I have a question. You remember I told you I used to date this guy named Robert. Okay, so Robert called me yesterday And and so she'll say something that triggers him. He said, "Oh, no, he trying to make a fool out of you. He trying to make a fool out of you. No, tell Robert to talk to me." If she takes his advice, I'm telling you, I'm giving you guys revelation. If she takes his advice, he now feels obligated to her. He feels like he needs to protect. This is how she slowly begins to turn his heart away from his wife. So the protector is no longer protecting his wife. The protective side of him is now turned toward her. Because now, and what she'll do is every time it starts, that part of him or the aspect of his personality begins to turn more toward his wife again, then she'll say something that triggers him. She'll say, so I had Tony over yesterday, and of course, Tony and I are not having sex, but I had him over there, and so she triggers jealousy in him. She triggers many things up in this guy. I had him over there, and yeah, he was insisting on giving me a foot massage, and I told him no. And he kept insisting, so I went ahead and I let him give me a foot massage. Next thing you know, he's rubbing on my ankles, and he said, "Man, listen, I don't even want to hear nothing else about it. I don't want to hear nothing else about it. Don't tell me you let this man hit it. No, he kept no. See, I'm trying to tell you, when guys do that, I'm telling you, man, when men do that, they trying to hit it. Cause see, I'm a man. And what we gonna do is we gonna rub our way up to the ankles, and then we gonna get on to the legs, and we gonna get on to the thighs. And once we get them thighs, you got it. See, you keep on that, yeah, but I did tell him to leave, and he started acting crazy. What she's doing is she's turning all of these different parts of the husband away from his wife. She's a seductress. So she's seducing him away from his wife piece by piece. She's seducing him away from his wife piece by piece. And his wife will start to notice his absence and what have you. And when she starts to notice his emotional absence, then she begins to question him or what have you. So there's the one that's going to try to steal his attention, or try to steal his soul that way. Then there are the other ones that are going to try to have sex with the guy. And if she can get sex with the guy, one, she wants to whip him, bring him under the influence, and then two, take pictures with your husband. All right. They are very, very seductive. And before I move on, let me make sure that I stop here. Seduction is not always sexual. Sometimes seduction is just how a person formulates their words. So I think that needs to be noted. That is not always sexual. A woman can seduce your husband by saying, she doesn't have to be very sexual. She can seduce your husband and say, "How about them Braves?" And he into sports, and you're not. She can seduce your husband that way. She can pretend to be, or she can disguise herself as what he wants. Remember, Satan does disguise himself as an angel of light. So she will disguise herself as being everything that he wants in a woman. Number 3, women who have siren spirits are oftentimes highly sexual. These are the spirits that are behind the porn industry and sex trafficking. They can be highly sexual, so they can be very learned. Remember, Miss Lula May knew she had granddaddy legs over his head, had him screaming, or what have you. But they can be extremely sexual. So these women, thank you, Sister Alexandra. God bless you. These women can go out here and they learn a lot about sex, and they learn a lot of things to do when it comes to a man. And like I said, one thing about the enemy is he's very strategic in ensuring that he's not going to lose a female. And it's not just women who can be bound, but he's not going to just lose a female that is a seductress. A seductress is not created or broken to become a seductress by Satan for her to get married. That is not Satan's design for her. That's the reason why her marriages won't survive. The enemy will ensure that her marriages don't survive, because one of the things he doesn't want is to lose one of his agents to marriage. He doesn't want to lose one of his agents to marriage. Now, she'll get married thinking she's going to stay married, but she's going to 9 times out of 10 have a spirit spouse that ensures that she doesn't stay married. But a female like that is going to be extremely sexual. She's going to be a person that is probably addicted to sex. She's going to deal with promiscuity. She's going to be out there always. She knows how to look at a man. She knows where to touch a man. She knows, those special points in a man's, on his body, like special places to touch him, like right here at the nape of his neck, right just up above his head. She knows where to touch him on his ears, just behind the ears, and she knows where to touch this man, or and it's different for every man, but she's going to learn his triggers. She's got to learn different things that she can do. She'll learn how to look at him. She'll learn his proclivities. She'll learn different things like that because her goal is to master the man. Her goal is to master the man because, again, when you're dealing with a siren spirit, there is a contract that's in place. And then that woman is going to have an assignment. In many cases, she's not going to be aware of the assignment, but she's going to have an assignment. But they're going to be highly sexual. And a lot of times they're going to try to learn as much. They like being experienced with sex. They like being experienced with sex. So they like to say stuff like, boy, I would have you crying and calling your mama. I would have you crying, calling your mama. I'm telling you, they like to brag about what they can do in the bedroom, but really they're talking about all of the experience that they've gotten from other men, things that they've learned in the field, if you may. But they're going to be highly sexual. They're going to be highly sexual, and they're going to know a lot as far as it relates to sex because many of them are convinced that they can convince a man to love them, to stick with them, or they can take somebody's husband by, doing all of these different things that they've learned. They're going to think they can take a guy by doing all of these different things that they've learned. And then you're going to have the ones who are a little bit more passive. I always tell people demons don't always change the personality. They utilize the personality that the person has. So if you have a female that's a little bit more passive, her seduction, or let's say she's a little bit more shy, her seduction is not going to look like her wearing a short skirt and popping gum. Her seduction may look like her pretending to be innocent. That can be her seduction, looking like she may pretend to be innocent. And in many cases, a female like that, one of the ways that she can or will attempt to convince a man to marry her or to take him from his spouse or whatever she's trying to do, whatever her goal is to get pregnant by the guy or to claim to be pregnant by him. I need you to love me when I tell the truth. Because some of y'all, if you can be honest, some of y'all did that before. A woman will be messing with a man. For example, a man has a girlfriend and she's trying to take him. She's on she's his side piece and she tries to take him from the female. And then she'll tell him, I haven't seen my period. Or he called her. He said, what you doing? What you doing? Eating? What you eating? A pickle? We affiliated or associated pickles with pregnancy. I don't know. I know when I was growing up, every girl who tried to pretend to be pregnant always had a pickle. Every girl who was pregnant, pregnant women didn't have it as much, but most of the times the girls who were pretending to be pregnant typically would always go and get themselves a pickle. They would buy pickles and always be eating on pickles and stuff like that. So when you come around and they sit there eating pickles and you're like, why you keep eating pickles? You pregnant? I just like pickles. And what have you. So she tries to convince him that she's pregnant, hoping that he will leave the girl. But she's going to be highly sexual. And a highly sexual woman, for my brothers in Christ, if she decides that she wants to have your child, right, pickles and ice cream. She decides she wants to have your child. I'm sorry, you having a baby. I've had to warn brothers in Christ. I've had to warn, when I was in the world, I warned cousins and guy friends. I used to tell them all the time, once a woman decides that she wants to have your baby, welcome to fatherhood. I'm sorry, having a baby is going to be most of the decision that a woman makes. Once she decides that she wants to have your baby, welcome to fatherhood. Unfortunately, what the enemy does, the enemy needs levels of bloodshed too. What the enemy does, for those of you who may be wrestling with a siren spirit, is he will use you in seduction, get you to go out there to sleep with married men, get you to go out there to sleep with men. And the enemy knows that these men are not going to commit to you. You're way too sexual for them to even consider you to be a wife. So now you end up finding yourself pregnant and freaking out. You already got 2 kids in the back and you don't know what you're going to do with this child. And you realize that this man is not going to stick around. So what do? A contract becomes even more powerful when there's bloodshed. You're going to go get an abortion. That's the evidence of a siren spirit. Abortions are typically affiliated with siren spirits. Because whenever you're dealing with a demonic contract, the enemy is going to want so much bloodshed. He's going to want a certain amount of bloodshed. So you end up going out here, you mess with a married man, you got it in your mind because he's sitting up over there like, man, whew. You got it in your mind he's going to leave his wife. He doesn't. He makes you feel like he's obsessed with you. He's obsessed with your sex. Then you get pregnant. And you think that that's going to be it. And he doesn't leave his wife. The enemy needed bloodshed. He wanted bloodshed. You discover that you're pregnant. You go tell him. He's like, hey. He starts freaking out. Hey, man, I got a wife. But you said you was going to leave her. I know, but I mean, it's not the time for me to leave her right now. You know, the doctor says she's dealing with this and she's dealing with that. And then the next thing you know, he starts offering to pay for the abortion. And many women will go and pay for the abortion. Many women will go and allow the guy to pay for the abortion. When you get that abortion, what you're doing is there's a demon called Molech that has to have the slaughter of children. Back in the biblical days, people would kill their children for Molech, and God forbade that. They would put their children in the fire, they would kill it, or they would sacrifice their children to Molech. That is still very prevalent today, but it's now in the form of abortions. So you go out there and you make a bad decision. You go outside the will of God, make a bad decision, hoping to get a blessing from it. And when it doesn't come out to be that, you start freaking out. And you don't realize once you shed blood, what you just did is you entered into a blood contract. And I'll teach on that another time. But you're entering deeper and deeper. You're going deeper and darker into that contract. And when you start going deeper and darker into that contract, now the spirit of murder attaches itself to you. The spirit of murder starts coming, not only attaches itself to you, it starts coming after your children. It starts coming after your living children. And so this is the reason why we get deliverance and we renounce those contracts, guys. This is the reason why we get deliverance. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to educate you, because I see a lot of times where people, they're sitting there during abortion that God take those babies. They're innocent. Yes, I believe so. I don't believe that the child never had a chance to confess Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. They didn't even get a chance to really fully come into the earth. You know, the parents are taking them out. So basically, yeah. So they tend to be highly sexual. And again, the system of the enemy needs bloodshed. When you go back and you start thinking about all of these different kings, these different people that were trying to stop the birthing of, let's say, Jesus. I think there was Herod that tried to stop the birthing of Jesus, and he killed all these children. There was Pharaoh, who ordered the murder of a bunch of young boys, I think 2 years and younger. Well, no, when they were coming out the womb, he ordered the murder of these little boys. Whenever we start dealing with abortions, now the demonic kingdom needs a certain amount of blood. They need blood to operate. But the enemy is always trying to get people to shed blood with the belief that, hey, you're doing something for this child. But the goal of it is to get you deeper into a demonic contract, to get you deeper into a demonic contract. All right. So that's just part of the system. Number 4, women who have siren spirits tend to be obsessed with fame and fortune. Fame and fortune, even in the church. Because fame and fortune is not always associated with Hollywood, and I think that needs to be known. They want to be popular. These are the ones that don't want to go and do things the right way. They just want to get close to the pastor. If they can't get close to the pastor, they're going to try to get close to the people that are close to the pastor. They're always trying to get around power because they feel entitled to it. And of course, there are different spirits in the marine kingdom. We're dealing with marine spirits. And one of them is going to be the Jezebel spirit. Jezebel spirit is going to try to get close to the pastor. And so people like this are typically obsessed with fame and fortune. They want power. Remember what I talked about in the beginning. The reason that you start finding people start becoming obsessed with power is because they lost control at some point in their lives. And now they want to remain in control. So they try to control the narrative of their lives. So they make a lot of strategic moves and a lot of decisions to help position themselves to get whatever it is that they want, not realizing that it's a whole demon behind them that's motivating them, because that demon wants to be in a place of power. The demon wants to control the people in power or what have you. So that person becomes very strategic in their movements or what have you. They don't want to necessarily go through ministry courses like everybody else. They don't want to go through they don't want to go through that. They just feel like, well, I think because I feel like I'm a prophet, or because I'm cute, or whatever it is that they use to justify themselves. They think that should entitle them to a position in the church. So they move real weird. And I tell my extra prep students this. I'm always watching movements, and when I see a person slithering, moving real funny, I know, okay, this is a person who's in need of deliverance. This person has ulterior motives. Because if you are truly of God, you just get in place. If you're truly of God, you just, do what you're supposed to do, and you don't try to get close to leadership or what have you if you're truly of God. But when you start seeing people that are moving and they're very strategic in their movements, then you're dealing with somebody who has an unclean spirit, and that spirit is trying to position itself for power. And I can tell you this: if it does that with a person who's an apostle, you don't have anything to worry about, because it's going to get cut down at some point. But they are obsessed with fame and fortune, and I think it is important for us to understand that fame and fortune is not always Hollywood related. Sometimes people are obsessed with becoming famous in ministry. They want to become rich in ministry. They want to become the next. They want to become the next Catherine Coleman, but they have no power. They want to become the next Juanita Bynum. They want to become famous in ministry, so they move really funny. People like that typically will leave churches whenever they don't get the attention. Like the pastor has a small window of opportunity to give them attention, and when they don't get the attention that they feel like they are deserving of, they will leave a church and they'll go somewhere else because they're very strategic. Because if they feel like, well, the pastor wasn't moved by my baby hair, he wasn't moved by my little squinted eyes or whatever. He wasn't moved by my blue eyes, my green eyes. He wasn't moved by none of that. Many times they will get up and leave. And, even, and it's not even always a female coming after a male. Sometimes it could be a female that is, going to another female leader, and, she's doing different things like giving. I have people that give me, they will sow seeds into me, but at the same time, they have ulterior motives on the other end of those seeds, and that's called bait. And a lot of times when I don't give them the attention that they want, if they feel like, a lot of times people feel like, well, once I sow a seed into you, you're supposed to give me nothing but your undivided attention. And if they don't get it, many times they will walk away. If they're in a program that I'm hosting, they will leave the program and stuff like that, because they felt like they bought my attention and I'm not up for sale. But it's not always a female going after a male. Many times it's females going after females and males going after males. It's just people who want to have a position. Whenever you give a seed, you give as unto the Lord. Whenever you do something, like if you sow a seed into me, sow that seed because you're saying, God, I believe in what's on her life. I want to see her ministry expand, but at the same time, I want to tap into what's on her life. That's why you sow seeds. You never sow seeds to get the person to give you attention and to give you favor and then to be their friend or what have you, because if you do that, then you're going to be disappointed. So they're obsessed with fame and fortune. Number 5, women who have Siren spirits are unable to remain in committed relationships. They are unable to remain in committed relationships. And the reason for that is because they deal with just repeated disappointment in relationships. They are unable to be satisfied, because you cannot satisfy an unclean spirit. You are not going to satisfy a person who has a marine spirit. You're just not going to satisfy her. She's going to always see another female who has a bigger house, who has whose husband has a better car or whatever. She's going to always see something that she's going to complain about. And that's the reason why, or that's the strategy that the enemy uses to ensure that she does not stay in relationships. That's a strategy that the enemy uses, because again, his goal is not for her to get married. He's not trying to lose one of his agents. He needs her out there in the field working. And so he's going to go out of his way to try to make her hate men. He's going to go out of his way to try to make sure that, she has a distrust of men because then she will try to control. Whatever you don't trust, you're going to try to control. So they're unable to remain in committed relationships. She'll get in a relationship with a man and she's just not happy. She get in a relationship with a man and she just complains left and right. You know, the man says, "Hey, babe, you told me that you wanted to buy a house. I said we have to be frugal and use wisdom because the house you said you want is about $450,000. I don't know if you know this, but we don't have $450,000 in our account. In order for us to even get up the down payment for that house, we're going to have to save this much money, which means in order for us to get that, I need to put this much money into the bank every month. That means you're not going to be able to get your hair done as much as you want to get your hair done." She's going to complain about that. But I'm just trying to say, no, so you want me walking around here looking crazy. So, okay, wait, no, don't get my hair done. Watch some YouTube videos, baby. Learn how to do some stuff with your own hair. But I think if we do this within the next 2 years, we should have the money up to go pay a down payment. See, that's why you don't marry no broke man. Because you telling me, in order for me to get the house. And so if he says, you know what, because he's going to get tired of arguing with her. And he says, "Okay, I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter. Go get your house done. Go get your hair done." Then she gonna complain, how we looking on the house. At this rate, we're looking at 4 years. 4 years. I told you, this is a female that's not going to be satisfied. She just is. You cannot satisfy a demon. Demons have the appetite of hell. They have the appetite of fire. Whatever you throw into a fire is going to consume. She's not going to be satisfied. She can't remain in a committed relationship. As a matter of fact, it's easier for a female like that to cheat because, especially if she feels entitled, because the enemy will send another male at her that has a little bit of money, and he pulls up, he's driving a Rolls Royce and he looks out the window and he says, "How you doing?" And he's like, "So you got a man?" She's trying to ignore him. "You got a man?" "Yes, I'm married." "He treat you right?" "I see that smile on your face." "Yes, he treats me right." She gonna keep flirting with him, and then she's gonna make it up in her mind, "There's nothing wrong with me having a male friend. There's nothing wrong with me having a male friend." But in reality, she wants to move in on him, and if she feels like she's locked and loaded him, she will leave him. She will leave her husband for this other guy. Why would she leave her husband for this other guy? Because she doesn't want to live a standard lifestyle. She doesn't think that she should have to live that way. She thinks that she should be living in a mansion or what have you. So they're unable to remain in committed relationships despite how beautiful they are. Despite how beautiful they are, because many women who have siren spirits typically are very pretty. Not all of them, but a lot of times siren spirits are in a lot of women who are beautiful or obsessed with beauty. But it's hard for them to see themselves in a relationship with a man for the rest of his life if that man is not giving them the lifestyle that they want. So is it inappropriate for a married woman to have male friends and vice versa? It would depend on the marriage. Like, that's not a one size fits all. There are sometimes you may come across a man who is already has female friends, but at the same time, whenever he gets married, he has to submit to the ideology of his wife, and the same is true for her. And that's something they discuss before they get married. You can't surprise somebody when you get married. So it would depend on the marriage. It would depend on their trust level. Like for me, for example, I don't think I would mind my husband having a female friend, but not a female best friend. I think that's weird, one. And then two, it would have to be a female that is, she has to have respect for me. And I would probably want her to be in a relationship as well. Because I'm not going to be that female where, the girl over there doing a little sly stuff that he can't notice. And I'm sitting there like, and he like, you always being insecure, what have you. But it depends on the person. It depends on the person. or what have you. But they're unable to remain in committed relationships. The enemy will never allow them to remain in a committed relationship because he has them under a contract. He will always ensure that they go from one relationship to the other. They'll have children. They can be married for like 3, 4, 5 years, but those relationships are typically over with. And a lot of times it can be confusing to a woman who's been taught her whole life that she's beautiful embodied and that, that she is God's gift, that she's God's gift to men because maybe she learned how to cook. She has a pretty face and a nice body. And she starts to think that that's enough for her to remain married, but it's her dissatisfaction that disallows her from remaining married. And that's that dissatisfaction that's going to also begin to affect their sex life, whereas either she's not going to want to sleep with him, or if she does agree to sleep with him, her body's not going to respond because of what's going on in here. Her body's not going to respond. And so a man ends up having a wife who is almost like a corpse. That's all I can say. Almost like a corpse in the bedroom. And so he's not going to be happy in his marriage with her, what have you. And so she's not going to have relationships that last. So real quick, when we start dealing with the Siren spirit, it's important to note that whenever you're dealing with somebody who has that particular spirit, you're going to see a lot of seduction. Just remember that there's going to be a lot of divorce or breakup around them or what have you. The female will begin to disguise herself and all of these things. And these are because of contracts that her grandparents or her great grandma or somebody entered into when she was a child. And what the enemy does is when a person gets into a contract, he limits the information that they receive. So if you don't know how to get a man, then what you're going to do is you're going to turn to your feminine wiles. And just real quick, when I was in the world, I dealt with rape and molestation as a child, repeatedly. So I had a lot of trauma as a child. And when I got out into the world, and this is the reason I can teach it, because I can come at you from a person who had that spirit. But when I got out into the world, it was amazing for me to have power, for me to discover that I had power over men. It was amazing for me to discover that I can control the narrative, whereas when I was a child, I could not control the narrative. Now, all of a sudden, I could control the narrative. I can sit there and decide, hey, I don't want to have sex with you. I do want to have sex with you. I don't want to be with you. I do want to be with you. I can make that decision. Nobody makes that decision for me. That was a spirit that was operating in me. That spirit got in through trauma and lack of information. That spirit got in through trauma and lack of information. And that spirit had an agreement, and it had been in my family for many generations. My mother's mother was a beautiful woman, absolutely gorgeous woman, but she was broken. She was broken. She used to be a seductress. She was a seductress. And I believe that's how she got my granddaddy. I ain't got no evidence of that, but I just know my granddaddy used to be married before he met her. And she's 19 years younger than my granddaddy. So I have a sneaking suspicion that she stole my granddaddy from his wife. I believe that my grandma was that Lula May that was around the corner. She didn't have no kids. She was this beautiful thing, oh Patty. So I'm saying all of that to say it's very common in the United States of America. If you find yourself as a female that, maybe you are gorgeous, but it's hard for you to kind of stay in a relationship. No man sticks around. You are seductive. You are addicted to sex. You're addicted to porn, masturbation. You have a tendency to attract men who rape you, molest you, or do things. You have a spirit on. You got a spirit attached to you. There's a spirit that needs to be cast out of you. And most of the times it's going to be a siren. Whenever you start dealing with a siren spirit, sometimes when you're dealing with sirens, when you're dealing with contracts, it's a little bit harder to break that agreement or to go through the deliverance, because there's an agreement that has to be broken. And the way that agreement is broken is through fasting and prayer. That's why God said, or when the Lord came in contact with the man, that the disciples were unable to cast the spirit out of his child. When the disciples came to Jesus, they said, why weren't we able to cast him out? And Jesus said, because of your lack of faith. And he said, anyhow, this kind comes out only through fasting and prayer. Fasting many times deals with the agreement. This is one of the reasons why a lot of times when people are going to go through deliverance with me, I don't want to waste my time trying to do deliverance when there's going to be a contract in place. So I always tell the person to fast. Many times I tell people, hey, do a 3-day fast, and then we can go into that. But it's always a great idea to fast first, to make sure, because now we want to start dealing with these demonic agreements. We want to start dealing with these demonic agreements because demons are very legalistic, and they will utilize those. They will utilize those agreements to hold on to you. One of the agreements that demons typically have is unforgiveness. I'm going to say this before I get ready to close. And I had number 6 up here, but I've already talked about that, which is behind abortions. Unforgiveness is an agreement. Unforgiveness is an agreement. It's amazing. Like I said, the system that the enemy created is fail-proof. It's not foolproof, but it's fail-proof. The system that the enemy created is that when I was broken, when I was ignorant. Okay, let's do a little drawing real quick, and then we'll come to understand a little bit more. And I've done this before, but the system of the enemy is fail-proof. All right, this is something I've drawn before, but many of you probably haven't seen it. Do me a favor, make sure you're liking this and sharing. Make sure you're liking and sharing. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. All right, give me a second, guys. I'm going to do this again. I messed it up. Yeah. Give me a second. And I'm just going to show you, I'm showing it to you guys how God shows it to me. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. All right. All right. So do me a favor, like and share, like and share, like and share. All right. This is how God shows it to me. All right. You got different levels. Most of us we come in through this level. This is the bottom of the barrel. This is sin. This is brokenness, level 5. Down here, you're going to have twerking. You're going to have some of your favorite celebrities. You're going to have music that I'm talking about is just a mess down here. Most of the people down here are broken. They're in sin. They don't want a relationship with God, or they're religious. So you're going to have people down here. Now, many of us were born down here. We were traumatized down here. Many of our families have settled down here. They never gotten their deliverance down here. This is level 5. Now, if I date somebody down here and I have children with somebody down here, chances are he's going to abandon me. He's going to break my heart. He's going to do things according to the level that he's on. Now, I may end up getting mad, and this is where we start making our mistakes. I may end up getting upset because for me, I'm down here trying to be faithful. But it makes no sense for me to be faithful to somebody who's not faithful to God. He can't be faithful to me because he's not faithful to God. And I'm not being faithful to God on that level. So God told me, give me a second. He said, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and everything else be added to you. So my goal, my assignment, and so is yours, is to climb each level. Notice that this looks like a mountain, but my goal is to get here. Now, when I get here, I've come further than most of my family. When I get to level 4, I've come further than the majority of my family. There is a different breed of guy there. There's a lot of things, but I'm not supposed to settle down there. But I'm going to be tempted to settle down there because these guys on that level, they are higher up than Leroy, Tyrone, and all the guys I used to date on this particular level. You got a bunch of broken guys on this level. The guys on this level are still broken, but they've come a little bit further, or they've been taught a little bit more. So what's going to happen is I'm going to be tempted to settle down on this level. This level catches a lot of Christians. You're going to find a lot of Christians. And so the guys on this level, they can kind of fluctuate between floors. But on this level, God's not calling me to settle down. I'm supposed to seek ye first. I have not arrived yet. And up here means maturity. What this means maturity. This means wholeness. What I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to be getting deliverance, therapy, doing everything that I got to get revelation. I got to seek God. This is where I'm supposed to be getting. Now, when I get to level 3, this is a whole different level. This is way up from where I'm typical, what's typical for me. This is way up. So now when I get to this level, God doesn't want me right here. God, I'm just passing through. Now, when I get to this level, my family's starting to look at me. I'm starting to get the attention of people and what have you. So they start seeing it is possible. But then some people start saying stuff like what goes up must come down. All that. People are expecting me to fail. People are expecting me to fall. Okay. Give me a second. Give me a second. Oh, it's fine. Okay. But people are expecting me to fail. People are expecting me to fall. I'm supposed to keep going. If I don't keep going, then it's easy for me to fall back to these levels. When I get to level 2, again, I level 2, this is a whole different type of man. So the goal is to go up. The goal is to go up. The goal is to seek here, because this is this right here, the kingdom of God. This is where I find my assignment. This is where I find my identity. This is where I find what I'm here on the earth for. This is where I find my wholeness. I become content. This is what I need. But when I'm down here, I'm broken and I'm dealing with voids. I don't know what I need. All I know, and so I know that I'm a creature created by love. I don't necessarily understand it because I haven't embraced the love of God. And I haven't embraced the love of God. Hollywood tells me that love is this man that looks deeply into my eyes and plays a little bit of music in the background who makes love to me or what have you. That's what Hollywood tells me. So I start seeking that because I'm down here. But remember, the dudes down here are broken. They're demonic. They need deliverance. They need revelation. They need information. They need God. It's dark down here. The light up here is shining. The more I get up here, I'm going to see more light. The light up here is shining, but I can easily get stuck down here. I can easily get stuck down here. Now, down here, this is where you got your water. Sorry. See, you got your water surrounding it. This is where you're going to see most marine spirits. This is where you're going to see the majority of marine spirits. Level 5. Level 5. Now, I'm supposed to continue to ascend. I'm supposed to continue to go up in my relationship with God. When I get here, when I've accepted my identity, I've accepted my purpose, then I'm going to be content. Once I get to the place of being content, I'm going to be, I've gone through some deliverances. I've left a lot of people behind. I'm actually hurting because, I've healed, but I've had to deal with the hurt of having to watch people fall out of my life for the whole 9. But once I get to that level, I'm content. And so now, once I get to this place where I have arrived and God made me whole and I'm walking in my purpose, now it gets a little bit scary because I don't know why I'm not looking at men like that no more. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do want to get married, but I ain't desperate no more. It's a foreign place. As a matter of fact, every level that you get to, and I'm telling you from somebody who came from right here, every level that you ascend to there's going to be a lot of things you question when you get to that level. God has had to minister to me many times where I was like, okay, was I wrong? Did I do something wrong? And God said, no, you're I'll give you an example. On this level, maybe I felt like I had to give my phone number away. Because on this level, you get cussed out by rejecting a man. On this level. But then when I got to this level, I started realizing I gotta give my number away. I can look at a guy and say, no, thank you. I said, no, thank you. Then I just deal with the repercussions of it. Or on this particular level, when I started getting to this level, I started realizing I can actually tell people no. I can say, no, I really don't want to. Then there's a level of guilt that comes behind that because there's culture on each level. All of these levels have culture associated with it. So now I'm dealing with a lot of like Was I wrong? Did I do something wrong? No, I'm ascending to different levels. My point is a lot of times, and this is important, a lot of women will date on this level, marry on this level, and then complain about what's on this level. These men out here, I'm telling you, they this and they that. Yeah, on this level, they are like that. But sis, can I tell you something? That's also a revelation of you. That's not just a revelation of the guy. When you become better, it's because you settle down in a level. You settle down at the bottom, and now you're upset because what's at the bottom, you ain't happy with it. You don't want to die to yourself and ascend. You would rather stay down here and get mad about what's coming after you. These men, I'm trying to tell you, girl, that's why I do what I do. No. God says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and everything else will be added to you. On this level, there are a lot of demonic altars. You will find a lot of naked women. You'll find a lot of twerking women. You'll find a lot of broken women on this level trying to get the attention of men who are on this level. Trying to get the attention. There's a lot of competition down there. As a matter of fact, the men down there, they don't know the difference between a wife and a woman. They don't know the difference. And so they know they can dump you and be in a relationship the same day. You're going to get cheated on in that level. You're going to get left in that level. Your children will be raised fatherless on that level. Because the goal was for you to go up and to grow up here. There's a lot of deliverance that has to happen when I go from level 4 to level 3. But from here to here, from here all the way up to here, the amount of deliverance is astronomical. You really truly become a new creature in Christ Jesus. But the old you gonna fight with the new you because the old you don't want to die. The old you don't want to die. The old you is going to put up a fight. What you talking about? Go serve in church. What you talking about? Fast for what? How many days? Girl, I'm hungry. The old you gonna fight to live. The old you, matter of fact, as you begin to ascend, before you can get to the threshold of this level, when the enemy sees that you're about to lose, he's about to lose you. I'm going to give you a little bit. When he sees he's about to lose you, he gives you what I call a settlement offer. Thank you, Sister Ayana. God bless you. He gives you a settlement offer. He gives you a settlement offer. That settlement offer is typically what you think you need in a man. See, you said I'm gonna be abstinent. I'm gonna go and chase God. But sis, you're not delivered yet. You're not healed yet. You're not whole yet. Your eyes are not open yet. You don't know the difference between a man and a husband yet. You shouldn't be in a relationship right now. But some guy pulls up in the Rolls Royce and he goes to church. And he seems to only have eyes for you. And he may be Christian. He may be Christian. And you end up getting stuck right here, right between the floors. You get married right here. Your husband is the head of the home. You can't go no higher than the head. Your husband is the head of the home. You peak right here when God calls you to do great things. I've seen it 1,000 times. You peak right down there. You peak. And the enemy says, okay. Whew, that was a close one. That girl almost had a breakthrough. She almost had a breakthrough. If I hadn't destroyed Mark's marriage right then and there, whew, she almost had a breakthrough. Right when she was right on the edge, I was able to throw this guy. Right. I'm going to use language with you that God used with me when I came out of a marriage that was ungodly. You end up sentenced to 5 years in that relationship. Thank you, Sister Ayana. God bless you. God bless you, sis. I pray a double blessing on you. You end up sentenced to 5 years in a relationship. I'll answer you, Sister Antoinette, in a minute. Fasting and prayer, they can precede self-deliverance, but they're not always self-deliverance. Um, but some demons are higher ranking, and so you have to get some aid in deliverance. But what was I saying? You end up sentenced to 5 years in that relationship. So no matter how you try to get out, that soul tie won't let you out. No matter what happens, this man black your eye, body slam you, drag you by your weave while it's sewn into your hair. I'm talking about baptize you in a river at an event called drowning, trying to kill your tail, and yet can't leave. I don't know why. I tried to leave him. I tried, and I just can't. Thank you, Cat 64470. God bless you. I tried to leave him. I just don't know why. You're in a covenant. You're in a contract. You're in a sentence of 5 years. That man breaks you right here, breaks you down into little dust particles, and you're right back on level 5 broken. Back on level 5 broken. And you know what happens to a broken woman? She's going to become attracted to broken men. You know why she's attracted to broken men? Because she can relate to them. So when you meet the guy who says, I was with my fiance for 3 years. And let's just say your name is Amy. He says, Amy, I was with this woman for 3 years. Amy, I gave this woman my heart. Never cheated on her, nothing. You ain't paying attention. You still down here. So he sound good, but baby, he here. This is your revelation here. You don't need nothing else. Amy, I was with this woman 3 years. Loved her. I did everything that I could. I was there for this woman. I even bought her a car. Can you believe that this woman, she cheated on me with my best friend. My best friend. Now, what you hear is what sounds like a good man, but what you don't realize, that he may be trapped in unforgiveness. He can't go nowhere. He's trapped. You get into a relationship with him, with your broken self, show you what you look like. A second. With every heartbreak, just breaking. You get into a relationship with him with your broken self, and you make an agreement, a covenant. I wouldn't do that to you. And she's stupid for doing it. But I'm going to love you. I ain't going to leave. He says, promise me that. He said, I promise. And you make all these agreements that you're not going to leave. And then all of a sudden, you start realizing, I don't think I can stick with this dude. Thank you, AG. God bless you. He's very insecure. You start realizing that, wow. You go into the, let's say he comes over to your house. Now you're noticing that the relationship moving too fast. He want to be around you all the time. He trying to introduce, I ain't even known you a week. And you already trying to introduce me to your family. He comes around and he's like, who is this on your phone? You checking my phone? And every time you say something about it, he says, I'm sorry. I told you what happened to me. That girl broke me, Amy. She broke me. I gave her everything. I gave her my heart. I gave her everything. Then you go to feeling bad again. And he says, you know what? I tell you what, go ahead and leave me. I told you everybody does it. Everybody does it. Go ahead and leave me. And you said, I'm not going. I'm just asking you, stop being so insecure. And he says, I told you I love you. Now you have a kid with a dude, and he's beating the brakes off of you. Why? You down here. Now you find out why Amy left. Or no, whoever the girl was. You find out why she left. She left because even though he's soft spoken and nice and he, is relatively meek, he look cray cray. He look cray cray. He nice and all, but he look cray cray. This allows you from getting all of the levels of deliverance that God wants to give you. You got to ascend. This is why you don't get in a relationship right here. If you want to get full deliverance from what great grandma and them used to do, it's not just casting a demon out. And I think that this is the hard part for most Americans to really just conceptualize, is that it's not just casting a demon out. The most important part of deliverance is the destruction of those systems. And those systems are not destroyed by you spinning around 3 times and jumping up and down in church. It's not destroyed by you running a lap around church. Those systems are not destroyed by you sitting there speaking in tongues. Those systems are destroyed by knowledge and understanding and wisdom. That means that you have to intentionally seek revelation. You got to get books. You got to show up at church. You got to sit up there. You got to listen to sermons. You got to fill yourself up. You got to fill all of those empty spaces, all those empty voids with information. It's got to get filled. And this is what causes you to be weighty or have weight in the spirit, so you're not blown to and fro by every wind of doctrine. Because as you ascend, you're going to deal with all those doctrines. But you got to seek ye first the kingdom. You got to want God more than anything. But if not, you'll likely settle for the siren spirits or whatever unclean spirits that are operating in your family. Most of things that deal with divorce, seduction, rape, molestation, inability to get married, reproductive issues are going to belong to the marine kingdom. And this is something that we see that is prevalent in the United States of America. Again, right, God has to take his time to work on us. And a lot of times we don't want to let him do it. We're not patient enough. That's why, long suffering is one of the fruits of the Holy Spirit. Notice he didn't just utilize the word patience. He said long suffering, because he wanted you to understand that you will suffer long as you are going through deliverance. It does not feel good. I'm telling you from somebody who used to be a seductress, somebody who had a whole siren spirit. I'm telling you from somebody who's had to go through multiple deliverances, and not just, thank you, Sister Rissa, God bless you. It's not just a deliverance from somebody standing in front of me saying, I bind that devil. My most effective, most long-standing, most solid deliverances took place at the altar of decision. Yes, rape dreams will indicate marine spirits. They do. But they took place at the altar of decision. I had to sit there, and when I was tempted, I had to pass the test finally. And I'm going to tell y'all something. Them tests are not easy to pass. See, I'm going to give you a realistic view, and then I'm going to let you go. When those tests come, this is how strategic the enemy is. Without me retelling a story I've told 1,000 times, if the enemy wants to get a married man in your life and you are against adultery, and the enemy knows that, but adultery is in your family, and in order for that demon to continue on, it needs you to submit. Because the Bible says in James 4:7, submit yourself to God and resist the devil, and he will flee from you. And so if you keep resisting the devil, you're going to go through deliverance. If you submit yourself to God and you keep resisting the devil, you're going to go through deliverance. You didn't have to have a deliverance minister in front of you. That's the altar of decision. You made a different decision consistently. So if you got a spirit of adultery in you, and the enemy decides, I got to get her back into adultery, and you like, I'm not doing that, what the enemy will do is, if he has an open door into your life in any way, he may go after your finances. I'm giving you the secret of the I'm giving you a secret of the kingdom of darkness. He will go after your finances. He will attack the crap out of your finances. And you know what ends up happening? At first you keep praying. You try to get other people to pray for you. You do a lot of stuff in order for you to get back up, but nothing happens. It just doesn't seem to happen. See, God wanted you to get revelation so that you can stand your ground. You need that substance so you can stand your ground. But what happens is the storm gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And just when you're on the edge of your sanity, here comes a married man. Oh, but you know what? You're Christian. The enemy will justify it. He going through a divorce. He'll make it justifiable for you. I know I'm speaking to somebody on here. This man comes along and he looks at you and he says, he's driving a nice little car, he got a nice little job. And he says, then you say, well, you married? He says, well, no, actually, I'm going through a divorce. That's still adultery, sis. That's still adultery. But the devil will convince you that's not adultery. See, it's not like you took him. I'm telling you this. It's not like you took him. It's deception. You ain't take him. And you say, what happened between you and wife? Oh, she cheated on me. I didn't tell you. Oh, so now it sounds real good because it ain't like he left her. She cheated on you, yeah. Was talking about she was going over to painting class on Wednesdays, and I found out she was painting all right with her instructor. They even tried to have a scene like in the movie Ghost. You know, they was sitting up there and yeah. The whole wife was over there. Found out my 3-year-old ain't my 3-year-old. Was wondering why that baby was cockeyed. And I'm like, it's not possible. Saw her instructor and he was like, hey, how you doing? No, baptism doesn't deliver from demons. It doesn't. It sets you up, but it doesn't deliver from demons. It gets you ready for deliverance. But he tells you this story. I'm telling you how the spirit of adultery, if it's in your bloodline, it was in mine. It ended with me. I broke it because the enemy knew I wouldn't go for a married man. But if a man said, I'm going through a divorce, I was like, oh, well, ain't like I took him. It's a spirit of adultery. And it was in my grandmama. And it was in my mama. And that thing tried to come. It will trick you. So now you're sitting up over there, light bill due, water bill due, rent due, don't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, here comes this man. Got a little bit of money. And he says that his wife left him for her painting instructor. And he found out that the little 3-year-old ain't his child. And he go to church. And the pastor who pastors him is a really good pastor. So I don't think I'm too much in sin. They are very slick. So then you tell yourself, I'm not going to cheat with them, but we can be friends. We can be friends. I don't see nothing wrong with us being friends. Then you try this deception right here. Well, no, I think you should give your wife another chance. That's what you try to make yourself feel better. Because I did try to put him back with his wife. That's what the seductress does. I think you should call her. Demons are always evil. I think you should call her. I think you should call her. Because, she made a mistake and we all make mistakes. So you try to appear to be noble. You try to appear to be noble. And the next thing you know, you try to slip into a relationship. Oh, I can't believe that happened. Oh, and you run out of his house like Cinderella. I can't believe you went over to his house. What you thought was going to happen? That was not supposed to happen. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. I feel horrible. Here I am, a Christian, and I love the Lord, and I can't believe it. You can't believe it. You plotted that. Now you're in a relationship with this dude, and now you sit up here entertaining a marine spirit. You went right back to the marine spirit, and guess what? it's going to be 5 times worse because you got away from it at one point and now you went back to it. And now you're over there and you are trying to pretend. Thank you. You're trying to pretend you can. Or if you're really cute, because you have a grace when you're cute. If you have really cute when it's done, you just kind of sit there. And the guy's like, "Are you okay?" The whole time you're focusing on how you look. I hope I look real good and cute and distraught. Are you okay? I have to go. You're watching too much TV. You've been watching too much TV. I have to go. Because you're trying to create a moment in that. That's one of those marine spirits that taught you how to do that. I'm telling you, that's a marine spirit that taught you how to do that. Those are called wiles. That's a marine spirit. So we have discussed the siren spirit on the day. I'm in a silly mood. Obviously, it's time for me to go and get my tail in the bed when I start talking crazy. But that's what happens. It teaches you to play mind games. But these things are associated with seduction and stuff like that. And just so you know, just as a reminder, a siren spirit, a mermaid spirit will never allow you to get married. Or if you do manage to get married, it won't let you keep the dude. Because you are an agent of the enemies. And if you are an agent of the enemy, I've never heard of a shark spirit. But if you are an agent of the enemy, you got to get back on post. You got to get back on duty. And he's not trying to have you out here calling yourself nobody's wife. He's not trying to do that. So he's going to ensure that your marriage is destroyed either by your dissatisfaction or your husband's issue, or most of the times it's going to be you pushing your husband's buttons so his demons can answer, and him pushing your buttons or what have you. So anyhow, I love me some you guys. I hope that you were blessed by this message, and we will talk again soon. Bye bye. All right, bye y'all. We'll talk soon. Bye.